something I was going to ask you is this idea of overconfidence. If situations where, maybe you can share an example, de-identified or what have you, where somebody really thought they were competent, but reality proved otherwise.
I mean, I can think of clinical situations like that. I had a little girl who I had operated on in Boston, who was born without an esophagus, and they'd spent some time in New York trying to do different things, all of which failed, and she ended up coming to Boston. And what I did was one of the not hugely satisfying solutions to that problem, but works, is to take a piece of their colon and put it up in their chest and make an esophagus out of their colon. So this is what I did for this little girl, and she did extremely well for a long time. But one of the problems with that is sometimes the colon grows faster than the child does, and it kinks. And that's what happened to her after about 6 or 7 years, that her colon esophagus had kinked. And instead of coming back to see me in Boston, because it was inconvenient, they lived in New York, she went and saw a highly, highly, highly renowned professor of pediatric surgery in New York, who will remain nameless. But his particular area of expertise was not the esophagus. And so he made a decision to go in and resect the redundant piece of colon and pull the stomach up into the chest, and leaving part of the colon there. But what happened to the poor kid was she got terrible reflux, terrible reflux. And she had bad lungs to start, just made her lungs much worse. And then by that point, I had moved to Wisconsin. They came and saw me in Wisconsin. And, because that was an area where I had a fair amount of expertise, I thought I knew what I was doing. I figured out what was wrong. And so what I did is I took the stomach back down into the abdomen and put a little interposition of a small intestine in there. A pretty creative solution, actually. And so now she's got esophagus, colon, small bowel, stomach. But it worked. And she's now married and just had her first baby, much to my delight. But it was, one of those things where, somebody who was, everybody had telling this person that he was the Geheimrat, he knew everything there was to know, was doing something he really didn't know what to do about. Unfortunately, we were able to bail her out.
Yeah. That's a great example. Thanks for sharing that. That really ties into this psychological concept of the Dunning-Kruger effect. And I've discussed that before on the podcast, but just for a refresher for listeners, the study by Kruger and Dunning showed that individuals with low competence often overestimate their abilities, while those with high competence tend to underestimate their abilities. And in fact, in 2022, my colleagues and I published a paper where we looked at this phenomenon in physicians with regard to their assessment of their leadership ability. And we found the same thing, that those who are low competence actually overestimate significantly their competence, and those who are high competent underestimate theirs. So in leadership, the point there is we really must remain self-aware and open to feedback to ensure our perceived competence actually aligns with reality.